So, I figure if by now you're watching this video, it's because you know what happened. I interviewed the creator of Gravity Falls himself, Alex Hirsch. It was without a doubt one of the greatest and most fun experiences I've ever been able to accomplish in my time as a Gravity Falls fan. Having the chance to do this alone was insane, and even now, almost a year after it actually happened, it still feels unreal that it did. This video is going to be a behind-the-scenes look at how this interview even ended up happening. I'll be going over how Alex and I got in touch, how the interview was planned, how me and Hana both worked together in getting it done, the ups and downs that happened leading to it and after, the interview experience itself, why it took so long to release it, and just overall, go over the comments and receptions we've gotten for it, both good and bad, and a little retrospective overall. Plus, I have a very special guest who will be helping me out in this video. The legend themselves, Hana.
For those who don't know me, my name is Hana. I run the YouTube channel Hana Hyperfixates.
So let's start from the very beginning. How the heck did Alex Hirsch and I get in touch? Well, the story begins back in February of 2023. Yes, that long ago. But in truth, it started way back when I joined the fandom. Ever since I began my journey in the GF fandom, the idea of meeting Alex Hirsch was always a dream. And I was not the only one. I'm sure every GF fan who's been around long enough at some point has had that wish to meet Alex Hirsch. I mean, I remember back in my GF Amino days talking about how cool it would be and seeing other people share their dreams of it. But for the longest time, the most interaction I ever had from Alex was something probably a lot of other fans can relate to. Him liking a tweet or replying to something on Twitter, and that was about it. I watched other fans interview Alex, from old interviews like the GF Gossiper podcast to my friends at the Mystery Shack Look Back podcast interview him about Cypher Hunt. So many amazing interviews, and while it was always a dream, I knew I probably never had my shot at that. Right? Well, the day was February 1st, 2023. And I remember it like yesterday. I was at work. I think I was working on organizing catering for a major corporate event that my boss was hosting. That was actually pretty fun given everyone loved what I managed to organize for that. But anyways, I think I was waiting to hear back in regards to that and just dead scrolling Twitter. I made a couple of tweets and then got called to a meeting. After I got back, it was lunchtime, so I decided to quickly check my socials before going to lunch because I didn't want to spend my time replying to tweets. I noticed I had a DM, which wasn't a surprise as I'd often get at least 2 or 3 per day. I naturally checked those last, so I eventually got to it. And to say my heart skipped a beat when I saw who it was would be an understatement. It was Alex Hirsch, the creator of Gravity Falls. The show I'd been a huge fan of for years now had just DM'd me. And I knew it was him because this is before Elon stupidly removed the old verified checkmarks, so I could see that it was him and it was not a fake. Now, I cannot actually tell you exactly what Alex messaged me as he asked it remain between us. But all I will say is that Alex gave me an open invitation to touch base with him again at any point. I thanked him and everything and then went about my day. But I was now in this weird situation where I had just spoken to Alex Hirsch and couldn't tell anyone. As February turned into March and then April, I began thinking about getting in touch with Alex again as I wanted to cash in that open invitation he left, so to speak. I also figured that this might be my one and only chance to interview him. I had a very small chance to fulfill my big dream. This is that dream that you'd never expect to fulfill, but when given the chance, you do anything to make sure you can at least say you tried to get it done. So, come May, I messaged Alex and asked if he would be down to talk. A few days later, he got back, and we had a pretty in-depth conversation. Again, I cannot share exactly what we talked about as it's pretty top secret, but I can show you this. Alex mentioned he knew a bit about my work in the fandom, and responded with this about it. Now, I've been sent many thank yous and wholesome messages by so many fans and people, and they mean the world. They're a huge part about why I keep going with making these videos, as that kindness makes my day and all of this worth it. But to have gotten this from the creator of Gravity Falls himself, the man whose show made all of this possible in the first place? Yeah, that meant a lot. That meant so much. I am truly grateful for all of this and to have the chance to do what I do. And to not only know fellow fans, but Alex Hirsch himself is grateful for it. It really meant a lot, and something at the time I really needed to hear after the mental hellscape I've been through over the past year and overall so far this decade. The 2020s haven't been the roaring 20s, as I'm sure you all know. But, anyways, we kept talking, and in the midst of it all, I decided it was now or never. I asked Alex if he would be down to do an interview. Be it a yes or a no, I'd be able to at least say I tried. And of course, as we all know how the story ends, because here we are right now, talking about it, he said yes. Specifically, he said he'd reach back in a month and we'd be able to set it all up, but I now had it. I now had a month to plan out an interview with Alex Hirsch, come up with questions, and figure out how I'd even do this to begin with. Now, I had been secretly making posts hinting about this by asking fans what they'd ask Alex if they had the chance to interview him, mainly to try and find questions to ask. I obviously couldn't tell exactly what I was doing for two reasons. First, I didn't want to because I knew people would start begging me to ask Alex one thing or another and then get hate for it if I didn't, or beg me to send him a link to their Dipsifica or WinDip fanfic or something, and I was not in the mood to be the messenger of that. And secondly, because this interview was not yet confirmed to happen. I did not want to give people false hopes only to not deliver on it. I mean, I didn't want to pull the Alex Hirsch interview equivalent of DashCon or Fire Festival, am I right? So I began to write questions, many based on stuff about GF that I was personally curious about and had been long wanting to know the answer to, as well as long-standing fandom questions I knew were pretty popular. Two rules I did set for myself were no shipping questions and no Bill Cipher questions. My reasoning was that those questions are ones that Alex probably is tired of hearing and being asked about, and the last thing I wanted was to ask him that in the precious time I had with him. I also didn't want my interview to be remembered for just the one Bill or Dipsifica question I asked Alex and what he said about it. I wanted this interview to have my own unique mark on it, so to speak. Anyways, as I got my questions planned, I received a message for a collab offer from a fellow Gravity Falls fan and YouTuber, and one whose videos I was really starting to enjoy at the time. You might know them. They are, of course, my friend and fellow co-host on this project, Hana. And I think I'll let them tell you the story of how that all went down.
So I believe that that GF fan, and I both got in contact in the Mystery Shack Look Back server. I think we were both keeping up with that project. It was really cool, just really awesome to see this podcast that eventually got an interview with Alex Hirsch. And, we were with the rest of the fandom, really excited to see what came out of that. We eventually started chatting in DMs just about various projects we were working on, both being Gravity Falls YouTubers. I think we exchanged notes and ideas. We talked about maybe one day doing a collab or something. I think that GF fan voiced the line in one of my video essays. But essentially, that GF fan at some point let it slip to me that he was going to be interviewing Alex Hirsch and asked me what kinds of questions I would want to ask. And I then promptly wrote up a list of about 42 questions, many of which were questions that GFN wouldn't have thought of himself because we just run in completely different fandom circles. And upon seeing this huge list of questions, that GFN just went, actually, do you want to just do the interview with me? And of course I agreed because it was the opportunity of a lifetime. And I could not thank HK enough, honestly. That was such a cool opportunity, such a cool experience. Every step of it was great.
So yeah, Hana became my co-host in this project because I was just blown away by the questions they had. They were a mix of critical questions, in-depth, and overall, unique. And like I said above, that was the thing I was hoping for with this project. Uniqueness. Every question I'd been sent was unlike any I'd seen from the fandom in my time. And it's pretty clear that too, due to the fact that we both hail from different sides of the fandom. Hana's a more Tumblr GF fan and a longtime member of the fandom, while I'm more of a newer ex-GF Amino Reddit Twitter GF fan, and those both sides of the fandom are very different to say the least.
The side of the fandom that I tend to run in is very Tumblr-centric. I never really found my footing in the Twitter side, in the Reddit side. I never really touched the Gravity Falls Amino side of the fandom. But circles I run in tend to be very focused on Stan and Ford, their life experiences and how that impacted their behavior as they got older. A lot of psychoanalyzing these characters, but especially really relating to them. I think the fandom that I tend to run with tends to be a bit older. I think also because we're on Tumblr, not only because of that, but essentially my side of the fandom tends to skew very LGBTQ+. And while there is a lot of LGBTQ+ headcanons going on there, it's a lot of relating to the characters and particularly Stanford Pines in that sense. So yeah, that's the kind of fandom I run in. We're older, we're more focused on the Stans, focused on their childhood, focused on their shared trauma and their exclusive trauma, and obviously, you know, we just really love them. Not to say that we don't love Dipper and Mabel, though. I am on the Mabel Pines defense squad until the day I die.
I knew I couldn't do Hana's questions justice on my own, so I decided why not share the honor of this project with a fellow fan. I also figured I could do with a co-host on this project, given I have a feeling I'd just be like Dipper when he first met Ford the second Alex got in the call. And the questions we had were very different too. Like I said, I wanted this interview to be different. I did not want it to be a dive into one aspect of Gravity Falls or the animation process, or asking Alex to confirm or share his views on X ship or Y future GF idea. I wanted this to be different. I wanted to ask Alex questions he's probably never been asked before, about things he hasn't thought about in years. And I wanted to ask Alex questions that were more critical and push the boundary of what past interviews would him have asked. This was another reason why Hana's questions stood out to me. They were asking Alex the big stuff that you don't see from other interviews, and really challenging things. I didn't want this interview to be a mainstream project that any fan might know from a bit of research into the show. I wanted this interview to be for the longtime Gravity Falls fans. For the fans who've stuck with the show and dived deep into it like I have. This interview is for them. And that was my goal. Call it what you may, but this was in my mind. An interview by two longtime Gravity Falls fans, for longtime Gravity Falls fans. Now it was just time to set it all up. I'm also glad in this aspect I brought Hana along on this project, because they brought to the table so much that I was lacking. Unlike me, they had actual journalism and interviewing experience that I didn't. Heck, I didn't even know free versions of Zoom only let you host 40-minute long meetings. No joke, without Hana, had I gone in it alone, I'd probably have cut out with Alex after 40 minutes when the Zoom call hit its limit. That's how awful I was, and how important to this all they were. I may have been the guy in touch with Hirsch, but Hana was the mastermind behind making everything run so smooth.
The initial preparation process was necessary. I am glad that we did as much planning as we did. Obviously, no amount of planning could really get you fully prepared for the real thing, because when you're in that room, in that Zoom call room, talking to Alex Hirsch, a lot of things kind of dictate the conversation. Everything from the flow of the conversation at hand to, just where the conversation takes you, to the fact that as a fan, you're probably going to be freezing up because you're talking to one of your idols. Yeah, it's a complicated process for sure. But we wanted to prepare as much as possible. We each wrote out our lists of questions. Both of them were way too long, and then we ended up highlighting all of the questions that we really, really wanted to answer, or really wanted to get answers for in red. It's a bit like that SpongeBob bit where he's like, everything I really want to do I wrote down in red, and then Squidward's like, but everything's in red. That was it. That was our interview process. We did have a Zoom call practice just to make sure that technically everything was working right. My microphone kept breaking. It was not working very well, so I'm very glad that we troubleshooted that in advance. Oh yeah, we realized that we needed to pay for a Zoom call account, or that HK didn't have one, and if he was going to be hosting the call, the link was going to expire after 40 minutes, and considering the interview with Alex lasted about 3.5 hours, yeah, you know, I'm glad that we did that. Definitely worth the Zoom call money, and you know, I think I also got a paid account just in case. We both agreed to record our Zoom calls just in case something happened technically, because you never know what could happen. Internet could go down, power could go down, shit happens. So be prepared for as much as you can.
We had the questions, and we had the tech all set up. We even practiced and got everything ready to go. We just needed Alex Hirsch. It took a while, but after a bit of trial and error, we were able to set up a date with Alex that worked for all of us. I had a dental operation around the same time, and luckily it healed up before that. We were all set. The date moved around a bit, but eventually we were now locked and aimed for our interview to happen on July 15th, 2023. It all looked to be going perfectly. But as Milo Murphy said, what can go wrong will go wrong. And you want to know what happened literally hours before the interview was set to go? Literally the night before.
No contract, no actors, no wages, no pages.
There's 2 big ones that were in the pipeline, sizable ones that have been prepping for months and months and months.
Talking about some of the projects that are now in limbo. Over 160,000 television and film actors are now on strike. Back the first time for SAG-AFTRA union members in over 6 decades.
I get a DM from Alex asking to change the interview from the planned video interview to a written interview. And why? Because literally on the day before we were to interview Alex Hirsch, the SAG-AFTRA strike began, and as a union member, Alex had to abide by the strike rules, which stated that he could not do video interviews. Now, to say Hana and I were frustrated would be an understatement. Obviously, we had no issue regarding the strike itself and what it was for. But this months-long planned interview was now at risk of falling apart. It looked like Murphy's Law was having a field day with us.
So as I mentioned in my video, the interview was set to happen on July 15th, 2023. The SAG-AFTRA strikes began on July 14th, 2023. This put us in a bit of turmoil because SAG-AFTRA strike rules dictate that any personality that does acting for any of these major corporations that were found to be kind of exploiting their employees and the actors who worked for them can't be giving interviews about any kind of product such as Gravity Falls that one of these companies such as Disney produces, because it can be seen as media promotion. And considering our entire interview is talking about Gravity Falls in an extremely positive light, and I was not going to spend the entire time shit-talking Gravity Falls, yeah, that definitely threw a wrench in our plans. Alex threw out the option of maybe doing a text interview, just sending over questions and then getting, like, a paragraph of answers and response. And that probably would have been way less unwieldy. But ultimately, I am very, very, very happy that that is not the route we went with, because Alex gave such long, detailed interview answers, and he spoke a lot. He really, really loved answering our questions.
We now had a dilemma. On one hand, we could do the interview with Alex as planned, but hold on to the footage until after the strike ended, which back then we thought would probably only be a month or so, which as we all know was not at all the case. Or we could do it the way Alex was saying, and we could have it out sooner, but lose out on the whole goal of this interview at heart, which was to meet the man who made our favorite cartoon. Again, as you can see from the fact that this all happened back in July and the interview came out in April, we went with option 1, and Alex was okay with it too. This also meant we now had a more casual interview plan with him. The truth was that despite how exciting an interview with Alex would be when we could release it, just meeting the guy alone was probably more valuable in the moment. And even in retrospect, I do not regret the choice. We got to have our cake and eat it too, so to speak, even if we had to wait nearly a year to have it. But with that said, all systems were a go, and the next day, at 12 p.m. EST, we got in a Zoom call, hit record, and for over 3 hours straight, interviewed Alex Hirsch. Wait. Oh, here he is. He's here. Here we go.
All right.
Hey!
Hi, Alex.
Hello. Nice to see you. How are you doing?
Hey,
my
I'm
God.
doing good. Nice to see you both.
Interviewing Alex Hirsch was a dream come true, not just because he's a hero of ours, and not just because he created this incredible thing that we love dearly, flaws and all, but because he was actually a really good interview contender. He was just a great interviewee. He responded to questions really well. He seemed really excited that we were asking some of the questions that we did, because there were questions that he pretty assuredly had not been asked before. He seemed really enthusiastic. I think what people don't realize is that a lot of Alex Hirsch's replies got whittled down, or cut down, either because he repeated himself a bit, or because he was just really enthusiastic and gave hugely long answers to these questions. Ultimately, he seemed really enthusiastic and responded to our enthusiasm, and I'm really happy that he did that. I would have sucked if we felt the whole time like he wasn't enjoying himself, but he said multiple times that he was having fun. The thing that killed me is, and I think some of this is still in the final interview, but there's a couple times in the 3.5 hours where we were like, "Oh man, Alex, you gotta go soon. We'll cut this out. We'll cut this short." And then he would answer the next question. He'd be like, "Okay, one more answer," and it would be like 10 minutes long. Like, he would give so much detail. He would just give so much detail. He just had a lot to say. And at least the vibe we got, and hopefully this is an accurate reading of the vibe, is that he had a really good time. And we really enjoyed interviewing with him.
Words cannot describe how the emotions felt in that moment. Even in the interview at the end, when you hear me and Hana go nuts about it, that only does it a brief justice. The emotions in person on that day were something else. I legit cried tears of joy and broke down for about an hour afterwards, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. Call it corny or cringe if you wanna, but if you're in my shoes and felt the same emotions I did, you'd get it. And everything went perfect too. It was like everything bad that we were fearful of happening the previous day had just all vanished. The internet held up and didn't crash for any of us. The Zoom call did not have an issue. None of our computers had an issue. There was no distraction or loud noise that ruined the call. The interview saved without corruption. No one called any of us for 3 hours. No nothing. I'm not the most religious person, but I do believe God, or whatever higher power up there you believe in, made sure that on that day, everything went perfect and we got this W. It was the perfect day for the most perfect interview. I still cannot fathom how well it went. But with the interview now over, the real hard part began. Getting this ready for release. Now, my initial hope was that if the strike ended within the next few weeks and Alex was able to look over the transcript Hana and their friends made, we'd be able to get this interview out before the end of the summer. See, alongside the main interview set of questions, we also had a written part made up, which at worst we hoped if Alex could get sent back to us soon, we could release that first and then the main audio interview later. But as you all know, the actor strike went on for a lot longer than the summer. cut to a month after the interview, and as I got ready to head back to classes, we still hadn't heard back from Alex on the transcript or the questions. We emailed him regarding it, which he apologized for, but in the midst of it, he also sent us something rather interesting. At the bottom of his email update, he included a PS asking the following, quote, "As individual fans, only speaking for yourself and no one else, if you saw a book that had a cover like this, what would you hope to see inside?" And while I cannot show you what he sent, what I can tell you is that what we were seeing in that email was an early cover of what we now know to be the Book of Bill. Yes, Alex Hirsch showed me and Hana an early cover of the book and asked us for our inputs on it all the way back in August.
Every now and again, we would be in touch with Alex after the initial interview, just to ask him follow-up questions and ask for some clarifications, but also because Alex Hirsch was reviewing the transcript that I made of the interview. Every single time that we would send an interview question or a transcript question, and he took a while to respond to us, he would be very apologetic. And he would partially apologize by sending a spoiler image of an upcoming project that he swore us to secrecy on. And that project was, of course, the Book of Bill. We saw like a prototype book cover, with the Book of Bill in gold text on a black leather background. It looked a lot like the Book of Mormon. So that was funny. Bill Cipher is Joseph Smith confirmed. But what I'm really getting at here is that he sent us a lot of images, probably from either inside the book or from planned promo of the book. And again, sworn to secrecy. So the last few months, when everyone was losing their minds over Book of Bill and the announcement for Book of Bill and the pre-announcement for Book of Bill, me and HK were just sitting in the corner, like trying not to scream. It was wild. It was a wild time. It was the most stressful thing I've ever been through. That's not true, but it's definitely more stress than I should have been through. Genuinely difficult. I'll say this because, I'm not afraid to say it. The image that Alex showed at that last panel to that audience of the exclusive sneak peek into Book of Bill, yeah, HK and I saw it first. It's not very exclusive. We thought we were getting an exclusive first look. Who knows, maybe HK and I were not the first fans to see it either. But when Alex called it an exclusive first look, I was like looking into the camera like I was on The Office. I was like, okay, sure, Alex. But that was its first reveal into the world, which is pretty exciting and pretty funny.
So, while I cannot say for certain if Alex took what we told him into consideration, we did give him some fan feedback on an actual Gravity Falls book. I'm still so speechless about that. In total, Alex sent us a couple of photos related to the Book of Bill and stuff inside it afterwards. While I can't of course show them, besides this one image which, while Alex said was exclusive to an event he recently attended virtually, was actually an image he showed me and Hana way back in September, yeah, there's that. But let's just say, you all are in for a real treat when this thing finally releases. I am so excited for this book to finally come out, you have no idea. Having to keep quiet on this book has been insane. Alex literally even told us the exact day and time he was gonna announce the book, and I had to stay silent about it on the night before as I watched fans guess what the tweets on Oregon Parks were alluding to. I mean, when I made my video, I had to be so discreet and so quiet about it. Like, I could not tell you exactly what it was all alluding to. I literally had the power that night to reveal everything to the fandom, and even if people did not believe me at first, I'd probably have had people later tell me they were shocked at how I predicted it all. But I held back and let the fandom have their fun. But it was funny how much power Alex gave me, sort of speak, with those early previews. It was crazy how much I could have spoiled, but of course I didn't because I'm not a jerk. But back to the main interview. I think you can see why it took so long even though the strikes ended in early November. We had to wait till December when Alex was free after the book reveal to then get back to us and review the transcript. And man, there were some questions he had us cut that I am so mad about still. Like a bit where he talks about working on Headhunters with the guest voices that episode had, a question about The Office Buffalo I really want to still make a video on soon, and of course, UAHP. Yes, I asked Alex about Untitled Alex Hirsch Project, his Netflix show. We tried to see if there was anything he told us that we could release publicly, but alas, it all had to be cut. But let the record know, we tried to be the first ones to share information about that. And while I can't share what he did say to us, it cleared a lot of the confusion and misinformation out there regarding his Netflix work. All you need to know is what is already public. Alex is still at Netflix, and if with any luck, if things go well, his show might one day finally see the light of day and escape development hell. And if it's even a % close to what he hinted to us about it, GF fans are going to be eating good one day. Maybe. But yeah, that was always a part we knew would probably be cut, and it's still annoying it had to be, but whatever.
A lot of stuff had to get cut from the interview, simply because Alex was being really careful about talking about future projects, talking about his deal with Netflix, talking about some experiences at Disney, talking about things that he may or may not be working on. There's a lot of things that he mentioned that he may or may not be working on that I don't think he really wanted to put out into the world because they're not sure things. And let me tell you, with how many people bug Alex Hirsch daily about a season 3 of Gravity Falls, something that he definitely isn't working on and has never announced to even be thinking about working on, I can definitely see him being anxious about maybe accidentally hinting on something that he has just floating around in his head if it's not confirmed yet. So there were plenty of cuts from the interview. You'll notice that I have said that our interview ran about 3.5 hours, well over 3 hours. And my video on the interview was an hour. And HK's video on the interview was an hour. And there was some overlap between our interviews, some things that were in both of our interview videos. And also, my interview video had a bunch of, commentary and a bunch of interjections by me kind of explaining stuff. So yeah, obviously, at least a third of the interview, and well over a third of the interview, is cut from the public eye. There's a lot that y'all didn't see, and I'll say this, a lot of it was Alex Hirsch, just being really enthusiastic and answering our questions with a lot of detail. He said so many things. A lot of it was really, really interesting. And maybe one day we'll talk a bit more about it. But alas, that needs to be kept quiet for now.
But yeah, once the interview transcript was looked over, we had everything ready to start finally editing this. Sadly, Alex did not have the time to answer the written portion of the interview, which was super frustrating given the questions we asked him in that, which now will never be answered. But hey, we still got a lot more out of the main interview than we imagined, so count our blessings, I guess. And to make the story even better and add a cherry on top of the cake, Alex also sent out some art that he drew for us both that he said he'd do. He asked us who our favorite characters were and drew them for us.
Yeah, send me an address to send and the names of the people to sign stuff for, and I'll also sign something for both of you because you're
okay. Thank you so much, Alex.
You deserve it. Tell me who your favorite character is, and I'll that's for both of you.
All right, for sure.
Absolutely.
Right. Hana's drawing was a Ford with additional rectangles that, if you've seen their interview, you'll get the reference. And for me, he drew Dipper and Mabel in my hometown of Toronto. Side note, a funny little story regarding this. Alex Hirsch does not know what the CN Tower is. I mean, I literally got sent a message from Hana saying that they got sent an email from him asking if CN meant Cartoon Network. In this context, CN means Canadian National, as the CN Tower's full name is the Canadian National Tower. So I then had to reply to him alongside Hana, explaining to him and essentially educating Alex Hirsch on Canadian history and what the CN Tower is. And the best part? He replied later on thinking that it was the equivalent to a giant water tower with a logo on it like from Animaniacs. To say we both didn't die of laughter from that would be an understatement. Alex then had it sent out literally the day later, alongside some other goodies I'll be talking about in the next video about this interview. We now had our own personalized drawings from Alex Hirsch, and our interview reviewed and given the Hirsch stamp of approval. At this point, we really wanted to announce to the world that the interview was coming, as we now had gotten the green light from Alex to do so. But we decided to wait until we had gotten a good portion of the editing done before we did that. And once that was done, the day finally came, and on February 17th, me and Hana announced to the world that we had interviewed Alex Hirsch and would be releasing it soon.
So it was really exciting. We were getting a lot of questions. We were getting a lot of enthusiasm. We were getting a lot of people super excited. Obviously, we were excited too, especially because we were announcing it about a full year after actually making the stupid thing. Like after the actual call with Alex. It's been almost a year since then, which is unbelievable to me. I'm recording this now on May 6th. The interview process was already well underway in May of 2023. So yeah, wild stuff. I'll admit, I was expecting a little bit more fanfare, especially like on Reddit. The announcement that the interview was coming was posted to Reddit, and it got like no upvotes compared to, I don't know, it was some Dipsifica thing. It was wild. I was like, all right, I guess this is what this side of the fandom cares about. I'm kind of dragging the Gravity Falls Reddit fandom a bit. I'm sorry. I don't mean to. I come in peace, I promise. But it was an actual interview with Alex Hirsch. That being said, it was really, really exciting. We were still finishing up our videos, so I do remember me feeling like I really had to scramble to get this out as soon as possible. I wanted to announce it ASAP because I don't know what I was so anxious about. I just wanted it out there. I think I was just really sick of keeping this a secret. And by the way, I was really bad at keeping it a secret. I immediately told my patrons on Patreon, like, very, very closely after the interview was actually done. I let people on Patreon know that I was working on it. And I let, like, a bunch of my friends know. HK, I didn't tell you this, but I told, like, 30 people. I'm so sorry. I suck at keeping secrets. But in my defense, I was getting an ulcer.
Once that was done, we had a clock counting down. Every day the interview was not out meant more people probably asking us when it would be out. So we were editing round the clock. Well, at least the best we could, given we were both busy with our own real-life obligations at the time to deal with. But in the end, we did do it, and despite the initial end of March release date moving to mid-April, it was all worth it in the end. And we released our interview with a great release day reaction. It was amazing to finally have gotten this interview to the finish line. It felt like forever we had been planning this, and now the day at last was here. The fandom at large was now ready to hear our interview with Alex Hirsch. And on April 12th, 2024, we released it.
It was a lot of anxiety. I felt a lot of anxiety about actually releasing the interview because at that point, it's out there. You can't make any more changes. And when you've been staring at something for as long as we had, with the interview, with the transcript, with, thinking about the questions, there comes a point where you just can't undo things. After the actual interview with Alex, I remember feeling this dread because I thought of all the things that I could have asked but didn't get a chance to. I felt that in my gut, and that's scary because I don't want to disappoint the fandom. I have made a home in the Gravity Falls fandom in the last 10 years. I've met my partner through the Gravity Falls fandom. I made a lot of my friends through the Gravity Falls fandom. I take road trips to Confusion Hill with Gravity Falls fans who are my friends. Because of this fandom. This fandom means a lot to me. I have found a family in this fandom that I definitely couldn't really have at home, speaking personally as a trans person. So disappointing this fandom was kind of scary, and there was no way to make everyone happy with the interview. But once it was actually getting released, I felt a mixture of relief because I didn't need to worry about it anymore. What will happen will happen. Like that kind of anxiety zen you get at the scariest moments of your life. But also, the night before the interview, and actually, I'll say this, I don't think I told you this before, HK, but several nights Several nights before the interview was released, I would have a recurring nightmare that we would release the interview and that Alex Hirsch would email us telling us not only did he hate it, but that we accidentally published something he told us not to, and that he would be suing us, and then he would go on Twitter and tell everyone we were cringe. This is an actual nightmare that I had multiple times, and I would wake up in a cold sweat, and I don't know which part of those, the getting sued, the being called cringe, the mean email from Alex, the hypothetical dream email from Alex, I don't know which of those was scariest to me, but they were all scary, and it was an awful nightmare. And none of that happened. So, there goes to show you. Sometimes your heroes won't call you cringe.
And now, here we are. It's honestly been an incredible experience getting this interview from concept to reality. I didn't even think in 2023 that I'd have the chance to speak one-on-one with Alex Hirsch, let alone release a whole interview on it. It felt incredible, and even now, it feels unreal that it happened. The response too has been amazing, and I am so grateful for it all. Of course, like anything, I have seen some critique and questions regarding the interview, question choices we had, and why we asked Alex what we did. But truth be told, that was in part why I feel it went so well. I won't deny that in retrospect there are some questions I'd probably have asked Alex over what we did ask him, but neither with mine or Hana's do I feel any sort of regret on it. Yeah, we wanted to ask Alex fun fandom questions, but we also wanted to ask him critical questions. Not just questions that would praise GF, but also ask about its shortcomings. I mean, I'm not that kid anymore in 2017 that thought Gravity Falls was the greatest show ever made without flaw. I'm in my 20s now, and with 7 years of fandom experience, stories, opinions, and takes behind me. I know it has flaws, and even Alex Hirsch knows that. He said it himself. I wanted our interview to take that on and challenge the norm. I knew not everyone would like that, but I feel greatly in regards to it. And that is why I am happy with how it went and with the way it went, and that Alex answered the questions we asked him about with the knowledge and understanding that he would any other. We're both huge fans of his work, but every artist also at some point faces critique of their work. I sure did as I grew this channel and worked to get it to where it is now, and I still have a long way to go. And Gravity Falls is no different. So, personally, I have no regrets on anything we asked Alex, and I am glad Alex was such a good sport about it, and that we gave him the platform to answer them in a manner hopefully others can see and understand. I'm glad Hana brought that to the table with their questions. I am beyond grateful to them for all their help and for being my partner in this once-in-a-lifetime project. We both are still so happy with how it turned out and keep in touch about it and other projects we're working on. Thank you, Hana. I am so grateful to have done this with you and for the friendship we now have through it.
There are definitely things about the interview that I would redo. There are questions that I would reprioritize. Neither of us got a chance to ask about Wendy's mom. That's, I think, a missed opportunity. Like, oh shit, like, I can't believe we missed that. More questions about the axolotl. I don't like the idea of, content creators adding too much stuff into the fandom years later. It's like with J.K. Rowling. I mean, aside from all of the horrible TERF shit that J.K. Rowling does, all the horrible transphobia, J.K. Rowling does this awful thing where she'll, randomly tweet out, oh, by the way, this is something that they do in Hogwarts, years after the book is written, and a lot of fans appreciate that. But back when I was a Harry Potter fan, I definitely didn't appreciate that at all. I thought it was kind of bullshit. A lot of the input that she gave after the fact actually made the original content worse. And that was another worry that we had going in, or at least that I had going in, that Alex would canonize something that in retrospect to me made the show less meaningful. And that's a very odd thing to really explain if you don't get it, but there is a chance that, a headcanon of mine that means a lot to me would be dashed against the ground, just dashed against the rocks by word of mouth by the creator. And I've had to come to a place where I personally need to not give the creator of the content that I love that much power. Because one, you never know when the creators of your favorite content will disappoint you. Not that I think Alex Hirsch will. But you know, you never know. Who knows who these days could do a J.K. Rowling. But also just the fact that sometimes the things that they write or the things that they make aren't as cool as some of the stuff that a fandom makes. That means a lot to you. You know, there's a lot of headcanons that mean a lot to me and mean a lot to a lot of people in the fandom, and I wouldn't want to bring a source of disappointment to them. So that's why some of the questions maybe got prioritized a specific way. That being said, I need to think about the fandom at large, not just the fandom circles I run in. And that's difficult. It's difficult to balance all that. I will say that in the final cut of the interview, it seems like I'm really talking over Alex in a couple places, and I hate that I edited it that way, because there was so much that Alex said that ended up getting cut out, and I feel like there are some questions I asked where I'm rambling a lot. There's a lot of Alex's rambling that got cut out. Alex, bless him, is very verbose. This sounds like I'm talking shit, but I mean it as a compliment because it makes for a great interview and you get a lot of detail and you get a lot of information. But I am speaking as someone who myself has ADHD. I am also very verbose. So correctly editing that verboseness to correctly capture the mood of the conversation and the flow of the conversation is difficult. Hopefully we did that, but it's difficult. You know, I'm just going to say that as a trans Palestinian person, I've had a very rough year. And this interview was something that was really a light at the end of the tunnel. Like, it really got me through some really tough things. Just being able to look forward to working on this project, being able to look forward to interviewing Alex, being able to look forward to releasing this project. I've had a really difficult year with a lot of grief, a lot of challenges, but it meant a lot to me, so much to me that HK brought me on to conduct this wonderful, wonderful interview. We really did our best. To the members of the fandom that we couldn't quite make happy, I am really sorry. Like, we definitely tried. We definitely did our damnedest. But we are only 2 members of fandom. And there are many, many more high-level members of fandom, definitely higher above me, who might one day get to interview Alex and ask the rest of the questions that we have. It's like the Gravity Falls announcer always said, so many questions. There are so many questions. Many, many more than what we got to ask. And I hope that in the coming interviews, especially considering Alex Hirsch is probably going to go on an interview tour after the Book of Bill, he's almost definitely going to get the opportunity to be asked more pressing questions than this. So I really, really hope that that works out and that we get the answers that we demand and that we need. And I guess I'll also say that interviewing Alex was a really rewarding, really difficult process, but it was made a lot easier with that GFN's help. So thank you to HK. Yeah, thank you everyone who watched it. It means a lot to both of us. But please watch both of our videos. If you've only seen my video and you haven't seen HK's video, do that. And vice versa. Because we ask different questions. We each have different questions. So definitely check those out. As I say at the end of my videos, this is Hana Hyperfixate signing off.
And that's pretty much it. Having the chance to interview Alex Hirsch was an experience that I will never forget. It's something I never could have imagined I'd end up doing when I first joined the fandom so many years ago. These past few years have been a real toss-up with ups and downs, and this was a huge thing to have been able to accomplish. I am grateful to have had the chance, and even more so that this fandom gave me the chance to do it. The kindness I got when I joined this community is a huge reason why I'm still here. Throughout everything from the positives and negatives that being in a fandom can bring, Gravity Falls fans always are an amazing bunch and a community I am always happy to say I am part of. This, in a small way, is my way of giving back to the fandom for all that it's done. Thank you for everything, my fellow Gravity Falls fans. Thank you for helping make the darkest of days that bit brighter. And thank you, Alex Hirsch, for making this incredible show. You and the incredible cast and crew behind Gravity Falls changed my life and the lives of so many others for the better. And I'll never forget that till the end. Stay weird, everyone. And thank you for watching.